So, Kyle, Star Wars, Star
Yeah.
Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars.
Mm. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star
Star
Wars,
Wars, Star Wars. Okay, Star Wars. I
Star
feel like
Wars,
we don't
Star
actually
Wars. Yeah.
talk enough Star Wars on this podcast, so I feel like we just needed to like dedicate a whole episode to Star Wars since it's May the 4th.
I mean, yeah, totally. Gotta agree with that. We don't talk about it enough.
Well, happy May the 4th, bud. I wish I was up there so that way we
Happy
could
May the
go,
4th.
to the movies and stuff, but alas, I decided to dip
Mm,
across the country.
I'm not even gonna go. We actually just watched Empire Strikes Back this morning though.
Oh, fun. I've got number
Just
4
at home.
playing on the background right.
Whatever.
Well, before
Ugh.
we dive into our week, first off, you sound sick. Are you okay?
Oh,
Allergies?
being overworked and all that makes you sick, so.
Not enough sleep? And I think I saw that there was snow this week up there, right?
Yeah, yeah, like on and off, and then Thursday it was just coming down like crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
It was weird because we were not in town and it was hot. And we when we were coming back into town is when it was just
It's just fucking
dumping.
snowing.
And like we had already drove through that morning and it was sunny and I was like, what is going on?
I don't miss
And
that. I
it's
don't
like,
miss the
it's
unpredictability.
the start of May and it's still dumping snow and it's like, okay. And then this whole week is supposed to be like thunderstorms. So
Lucky. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little thunderstormed out. It's been raining a lot here. It's actually pretty damn cold outside today, and like even though
hmm.
it's only in like the high 50s, it just feels worse because of like the humidity level here. So like I mean I'm straight up just like wearing my denim jacket because I'm cold, not because it's like a fashion statement or anything.
Hmm.
But
Well, I
even then
woke
we're
up
supposed to get more
this
storms
morning.
next
It
week.
was when I woke up this morning. It was like 30 degrees.
Jesus Christ, I don't miss
Yeah, I was like,
that.
why is it? And then like next weekend, it's supposed to be back in like the mid 70s, and I'm like, what is this place? How do you exist like this? But
Yeah,
it's
I think I
like every
texted
year, I'm
you.
like, oh, I've acclimated, and then it gets weirder. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It always like that was like the really shocking thing. My first year there it was just smoky, but my second year it seemed like the weather
hmm,
was all over the
hmm,
place. I mean, I remember we had that like massive snowstorm in like June, I think it was.
yeah, yeah. Well, there was
But
one week I think, kind of around that time where like I was at the lake in May, and then a week later it was snowing again.
yeah.
It was so weird.
I it's just been weird. I will say that like I don't really feel like last I mean, granted last year I moved kind of in the middle of summer, so I kind of feel like I skipped out on like a lot of the storms and stuff. But I think I texted you earlier
Hmm.
this week that like it's been a weird transition. Like my dog cannot stand thunderstorms because I mean, there's not really thunderstorms for the most part in Montana like ever. Like it's almost always like really heavy rain, or if it is thunder, it's like once in a blue
Yeah,
moon.
it's like when it starts to get kind of hot again, there'll be like a few, but they're not crazy and they don't last that long.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what's going on this week is it's starting to get hot and then the cold air and all that mixes and then boom, but it's only like 2 out of the next 7 days it's supposed to have a thunderstorm and the rest is just rain. So,
anytime it rains here, it's just gonna thunderstorm. That's kind of like the rule that I've accepted at this point.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
which is kind of so like obviously growing up in Tornado Alley, I've just have always been used to storms.
Mm,
But I actually was watching a PBS short the other day on YouTube where the Tornado Alley is actually shifting to the east because of climate change, because of the just difference of hot air versus cold air coming up from the Gulf. And so it's actually moving more into like Missouri, down into like other parts of Oklahoma, when it used to be mostly western Kansas, western Oklahoma, western Texas. So it's just like it's interesting to see just like in I don't know, like especially in the Midwest, you really don't see a lot of effects of climate change like maybe you do up north in the Pacific Northwest. And so
mhm.
it's kind of weird seeing how that's taking effect. And even storms themselves, like this year, I think was one of the highest years where there's actually been consistent tornadoes. Like almost every single day, there's been a tornado. So it's just been weird and wild for me. But
Mm.
I mean, hey, I'll take that over like earthquakes or something else. Well, I think this is a good time for us to do the intro.
Da 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 da
Da da
da
da da
da
da
da
da
da
da
da
da
da da
da da
da
da da
da.
da.
That's
Ba-dum.
enough of that.
Yeah, that's like the Rebels intro. Well, that'll be easy to use. So anyways, yeah, welcome to NerdPod Live and welcome to the YouTube channel. It's weird having to like cut little bits of this out to make it work. And then I did
Right,
not do that last
right.
week, so I scuffed that up a little bit. Um, but
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
So how was your week? You had a pretty shitty
Ooh,
week. I don't know how much you want to talk about it. I don't want to get you in trouble or anything like that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I know you had a pretty shitty week.
yeah. I'm not gonna get too crazy into it. Um, but just know if like you've been bottling stuff up for a long time and you're getting stepped on every
Yeah.
day, speak up. Like, just finally do it. Like, that's really all I'll go into on that. But yeah, it's been a crazy week. But I did get yesterday off finally to kind of try and recover. But it's been crazy at work for me.
I feel like that's also just like a good lesson for everybody. Like, I feel like there's just a lot of people right now. That's kind of why I said what I said the other day. Like, I've had like two or three friends reach out to me recently that have just like felt like they've had to bottle stuff up and that just felt like they, like, when it finally comes out, they feel really bad for it. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's like a social difference between like up there versus down here. You know, growing up in Missouri, it's called the Show Me State for a reason. Like you know,
Mm-hmm.
I know we talked about this plenty whenever I was up there working. Is that sometimes I'm a little bit more blunt than most people, but I feel like especially especially there's just so much stuff that's happening that everyone just gets accustomed to and everyone just gets used to it just being the norm. And I don't think they realize how wrong it is for an environment to be like that. And I mean, like, it makes me sad because I mean, I care so much about all of you guys because I mean, like I said, I literally spent more time with you guys than I did my own family whenever I lived up there. So it's just one of those things that like it makes me sad. It makes me sad to see so many people hurting, and it makes me so sad to see so many people just feeling like defeated at the end of this week. I mean, you're one of like four
Mm.
people that I've talked to there that are just it's just like defeat. It's just the best way to describe it. And I hate that.
And um, yeah. I mean, it seems like it should be getting better, but like the things that happened this week could have all been
Prevented.
1000% avoided.
Yep.
Uh, yeah,
Excuse me,
but
sorry. And it's not to say that I, you know, I, I made plenty of mistakes while I was there, but you know, I think obviously my week pales in comparison to yours. I didn't really have a whole lot going on. Um, I'm still really struggling with like ghost listings. I've really struggled to actually find a good fit for work. I found a few different prospects, but one of them they ended up going with somebody else because I didn't like the pay that I had requested, which is a little bit disheartening. I
mm,
wish that was like a conversation to have instead of just being like, all right, bye. I wish they could almost be like, hey, do you maybe want to come down on your salary? If not, you know, we're gonna have to go someplace else. But I don't know. I should count my blessings, especially with the fact that I don't have a lot of expenses right now. But I mean, that starts to run out pretty quickly. So it's just
mm-hmm.
whoa, whoops, my watch just started going off. It's just a little bit weird, like trying to find a job right now, especially because the unemployment numbers are so low. Like it seems like what is available is not very high paying, and there's a reason why those jobs are open. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a little bit challenging. But outside of that, obviously worked a little bit on the podcast. Started lining some other stuff up. Um, you know, obviously we've been putting a lot of work in to make it just better and make it more professional, and it's kind of nice like seeing some of the fruits of that actually like come to fruition. We got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
really positive comments over the past like two episodes that we've had with our audio and just with the overall look that we've switched up, and just you know, it's really nice hearing that, especially from like some of the bands that we've been like working with, like random people that I just like, hey, can you know, do you mind us using your or using your music for intro? And then that spurs like this whole ass conversation on, like the Spacewalkers, for example. You know, it's just been fun interacting with them. They're just really cool guys, and they just, I mean, it's cool having like positive feedback, and even if it's like constructive criticism, it still is like good hearing that from somebody else. But Yeah, I think that's kind of been about it for me this week. Do you have any like new music you've been listening to this week? Anything new and fun?
So like I know I don't know how like into like country you are or anything like
Mm,
that.
not much, but yeah.
I know I've been listening to Charlie Crockett's new album, $10 Cowboy.
Mm.
And then there's another, not a whole album, but a song that came out by Rain City Drive featuring Dayseeker. And I've been listening to that quite a
Mm.
bit. Um, and then just nothing really too new other than those. But I mean, I like that. And then whatever random indie thing you send me that I end up disliking.
Yeah, I've been in kind of like a weird like punk rock phase. It's been
Oh,
it's been kind of interesting. Like I don't know, like I've been in just in like this weird like talk punk. I don't know. Uh, I think for
talk
me, like I've
punk.
just been
Okay.
listening on repeat. Scorched Waves new album with a smile. I think it's just.
Mm.
I think I got. I think I got indoctrinated by the Siamese elephants, and then that sent me down a path of getting into like some indie rock kind of vibes. Uh,
All right.
but I mean, their new album is really really great. It was our intro song last week. Ghost is probably one of my
Mm-hmm.
top faves on that. Tora also released a new album, which is like real chill vibes. Um, and then Glass Beams is another one that released an album relatively soon. But they've actually had a few different requests to come to KC, so they might actually be coming to KC, which would be super awesome because like an indie electronic band like that, I would really expect them to come here. Uh, but yeah, that's also the kind of the cool part about like Taylor Swift making Kansas City kind of bigger is that now like everyone thinks about it a little bit more because it is like
Mm.
I mean it's a pretty big city. I mean the city itself is bigger than the entire state of Montana, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's been kind of a cool little week discovering some different stuff. I
Are you,
also
you're saying Kansas City is bigger than the fourth largest state in the country?
it's bigger population wise.
Okay.
It's bigger. I think it's like 2 times bigger than the population there, which is probably right.
I
It's
mean,
probably good
yeah.
that there's a state that's pretty pristine and not developed yet. But
I mean, Rhode
yeah,
Island has more people.
I wouldn't brag. Well, Rhode Island shouldn't have anything to brag for.
I don't know.
Have you watched anything cool lately? I mean, I know you binge watched Fallout last week for the
Well, that
podcast,
was
but
last week.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, this week I really haven't
had time.
had the time
Yeah,
to do much of anything other than try and catch up on sleep.
yeah.
I like I said, I watched Empire Strikes Back this morning. I saw that Tales of the Empire is out. I don't know when I'm
Hmm.
gonna get a chance to watch that. Uh, I watched uh Take Me Home Tonight last night, but I've seen
Mm.
it a million times. It was just on in the background,
Yeah, yeah,
but not really anything new or exciting. But yeah,
yeah,
just nah, I haven't just have not had the time. And Fallout's the newest thing, and I've already watched it.
yeah.
So
Binge watched it.
yeah, yeah.
Well, last week, of course, after we got done recording, and after we got done doing our first gaming stream, which for everyone listening right now, because I guess it won't really affect since this episode doesn't come out till Monday. We're gonna
Mm,
switch for this week only. We're switching to Sunday, just that way I can go enjoy May the 4th at the movie theaters and
mm-hmm.
watch some shit. But we're going to be moving our gaming stream to Sunday tomorrow instead of today. But of course, after that last week, I went up to one of my best friend Austin's, and we watched a bunch of different Star Wars stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can say that we got baked. Can I say we got? I don't know. Maybe we're breaking Twitch TOS, but we got really baked and just like
I
watched a
don't
lot of
know.
different stuff, which actually is kind of what inspired some of the thoughts behind today's episode. I tried showing him some of the stuff that I don't think a lot of people watch. I think it's some of the stuff that's kind of hidden within the Star Wars content on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also just showed him some of the things like Visions, stuff that he would probably never ever watch, outside of that. I also showed him like 7 episodes of between Rebels, sorry, and the Clone Wars series.
Hmm.
Just kind of showed him some stuff to add context to like Ahsoka, which respectfully, and it's rightfully so. The show had its issues, but
Hmm.
for somebody like him who didn't necessarily watch Clone Wars like us, he felt really out of like not out of the zeitgeist, but he felt really out of touch with a lot of the content because he didn't understand the characters and
Hmm.
understand like the backing of it. So I just tried showing him some of like the most important parts to try and pay attention to. So that was kind of cool. Uh, but yeah, outside of that, I think I haven't really done too much. Oh, I watched the show called The Gentleman on Netflix.
Hmm. I
It's a
haven't
Guy
heard of that.
Ritchie. So there's a movie, The Gentleman by Guy Ritchie, which is pretty much the exact same plot, but then I guess he redid it and turned it into a show for Netflix, and it's really fucking good. It's got Theo James as the lead. Um, he actually doesn't seem like a like brain dead like zombie like he did in Divergent in this. He actually really shows his like acting prowess. But it's also just cool because I mean, you know me, I'm like really big into like medieval history and royal shit. So it was
Hmm.
kind of cool like
Hmm.
seeing like a not a royal family but like a ducal family participate in what they do. I mean, it's not really a spoiler if you've ever seen The Gentleman. It's based around drug trade, so that's what the TV series is as well. But it's just like kind of cool, like showing the juxtaposition of like a super wealthy British, like royal, not royal family, but like a ducal family, and then like drugs. So, but it's really, really good. I highly recommend you watch it when you actually have eventually some time to sit down and watch like a
Right.
somewhat crime
Right.
show. um, but yeah, that's kind of it.
We'll
That's
see
all
what
I've been
happens
really
next
watching.
week.
I'm really excited to watch Tales of the Empire. Probably tomorrow though, because I'm
Oh
gonna be
yeah.
up until
Oh
about five
yeah.
a.m.
And
tonight.
I'm just like, I'm so glad that those like episodes are short too, so I
Yeah,
can actually like sit down and watch a few at a time.
yeah,
Where it's like with, Ahsoka or Kenobi, you have to set an hour or two aside,
yeah,
especially if it's like we're gonna do a 3 episode premiere all at once, and it's like,
exactly.
oh, okay.
I kind of was. I'm glad that they just kind of launched them all. I think they just launched all of them, right? They didn't do like they're not doing a trickle release like each week.
I didn't actually click on it, but
Ah,
I'm
yeah.
assuming they're all there.
I hope they're all there. I kind of prefer that to be honest with you. I don't really like the trickle releases just because I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I've kind of split on that. I don't know. But I'll be watching that, and then of course, with the premiere, or not with the premiere, but with a marathon tonight, they're doing like multiple showings, and I think that the package ticket that I bought was the evening one, so I think I have to be there by 6, and then they're gonna run
Okay.
literally all 9 movies from 6 p.m. to tomorrow.
What?
I'm not gonna stay for all of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
They're
I mean it
starting
was.
ours. Like they've already started ours here.
Oh,
Like it's
and they
already
have
gone.
two. Like there's just multiple slots. So they had a morning slot, a day slot, and then an evening slot to where they're doing the cycle.
Oh, okay.
But they even provide like dinner and everything like that, which is kind of cool. Then you get like breaks, and then you also, I think, I want to say that it was part of my ticket purchase that you get like a massive discount on concessions since you're literally staying there for like
Yeah,
the
they
better part of a
should
day.
they should have like little breaks in between stuff,
Yeah,
everything. Like that's insane.
I'll if I can find the schedule again, or somebody I think already took a picture of the theater this morning and sent it to me. One of my Star Wars book club friends, but I'll have to like
Hmm.
kind of show it on the YouTube video. But yeah, it was kind of cool how they did the schedule. It actually helped. But I also like it's also just going to be cool kind of going back and being able to see the movies that I never got to see in theaters as a child, actually being able to see those in theaters, or the movies that I did see in theaters as a child, being able to relive all of that, as an adult.
Hmm.
And then I'm
I
also
think it'd be cool to see the originals, just because I've
yeah,
already seen the other ones in
yeah.
theaters.
I'll be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed when I found out that the ones that they're bringing back are going to be the digitalized versions, or the one that they've pretty much the exact same version that they have on Disney Plus. But there's
Hmm.
actually a theater here in Kansas City called the Armor Theater, which is like an old, like they don't even have digital equipment. It's like an old reel to reel projector, and they actually
Okay.
have a copy of the original Star Wars, and they're going to be playing that, the one that they got back in the 70s. So I might try to go to a showing of that tomorrow, just because I think that'd just be really cool to see that, like the original film and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's just exciting. It's exciting to be able to like go experience that type of stuff with other Star Wars fans,
Hmm.
especially just because I feel like even though Star Wars is super popular, I feel like it only left like the realm of serious geeks and nerds, like just within the past maybe 10-ish years. I feel like it's become a little bit more normalized than it used to be when we
Mm-hmm.
were growing up. Because I feel like even when
Mm-hmm.
we were growing up, even though the movies were popular, it was still like, okay, they're just the movies. People that actually like were into Star Wars and like, dove into this shit like us, those were just big fucking nerds that no one liked,
Mm-hmm.
according to
It's
everybody
like,
else.
oh,
But
you're playing a Star Wars video game. Ugh.
yeah,
It's like, oh,
you must
oh
be
no,
some kind of freaking
no.
nerd.
Well, now Star Wars video games are some of the most popular in the world. So,
I mean, it's number one on my list, number two on your list for what we're about to go through. Um, so if you guys recall back to season one, I think it was episode 5 or 6, we went through our tier list of our favorite Star Wars characters. And obviously
ooh, I
that's,
thought it was like one or two,
it may have been one or two.
like
That
pretty
shit, that
early.
was,
I think it
that was
was.
22 episodes ago, Kyle. I don't know what you want from me.
You've been under smoke since then.
Yeah. Yeah. um, so we kind of updated our list, obviously with the new content that's come out since then. And, I have kind of changed my list based on some of the books that I've read, just because I feel like the
Mm.
books have added a lot of context to some characters. Uh, so do you actually? I'll let you start off because I'll let you make fun of me afterwards.
So
So
are
why
we
don't you give us your top
starting
5 list?
five to one or 1 to 5?
What do you want to do? Do you want to do 5 to 1? Let's do 5 to 1. Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty much
So
what we're going to do is we're
five
just going to tell
has
you what
changed
it
for
is
me.
and why.
Yeah, so 5, I don't know if you actually read any of my answers after I put them in.
I'm looking right now.
Yeah, I'm going Bo to Kuna at number 5.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one.
Mhm. Just like,
Should I say quick
so for
spoiler
me,
alert?
just well,
I mean, the
I'm
game's
not
like a
gonna
year and a
spoil
half old at this
anything,
point, so I feel like
but
we can probably spoil it.
just the his motivations um are kind of out there, but like
Hmm.
as a dad, you do anything for your kids, and I get it. And like that makes him super relatable to me,
Yeah.
even though, yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
4, I went with Ahsoka. She actually dropped down. Um,
Mm,
I mean I don't know, the show wasn't that great to me, but
yeah.
still like a good character. It's cool seeing her portrayed. 3, I don't even remember if he was originally on my list.
He was. Yep.
But I put Obi-Wan.
I think he was number 2 for you last
Um,
last time, if I'm not mistaken.
okay. I went with Obi-Wan just because, like, even we had the Kenobi show come out,
Yeah.
and you see even more of like the stuff he's been through, and he's
Yeah.
never turned, never thought about it. Like, I think he is like, to me, like the quintessential Jedi. Like,
Yeah.
that's the Jedi. You
It's
look it
pretty
up in the
fair. Yeah.
dictionary, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Not Mace
2,
Windu.
2, going with our boy Cal Kestis,
Yee yee.
who I still want to see in live action.
Same.
I know the PC port still isn't great, so a lot of people haven't played it, but Survivor is one of my favorite games ever.
Yeah.
I like that it built on the story that was already set in place in Fallen Order. Um, yeah, can't wait to see what happens in the third one.
Yes, that they
And
are
then,
currently developing.
yeah, I heard. Then number 1 stays the same. It's Anakin Darth Vader. Like,
Basic.
they just, I mean, it's, it's
It's literally what Star Wars is
that
about.
he's not
Yeah.
it's like Jadi's more of like that tortured soul sort of thing, and
Yeah.
has to live with these consequences forever, and then like is finally able to pull himself out of that with, you know, obviously the help of Luke. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's, why wouldn't it be, for me? Yeah, that's my 5. I'm sure it'll change again when we do this next season. So,
Yeah. Next May the 4th. Um,
yep.
yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny because Kyle, whenever, so I had kind of typed all of this up and just kind of sent it to Kyle like I try to do, just
Hmm.
that way we can be somewhat prepared instead of looking like absolute
Hmm.
buffoons like we used to. I also
Starting
realized
half
I
an hour early to due to technical difficulties.
yeah, forgot to turn
Or
my light
late,
on.
sorry, not early.
So there we go. There's the light. That looks weird. That put off. There we go. So, uh, Kyle gave me a little bit of shit for my list, so I'll go down my list really quick. Mainly because it doesn't have actually any characters from the main movies, like from like the main
Yeah.
Star Wars plot. But
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Like, not even one.
well, okay, so I think obviously because I've maybe overconsumed some of like the mainline stuff. But so number five for me was actually Count Dooku, and a lot of that was just I feel like what Dave Filoni, Papa Dave, is doing is he's definitely perpetuating the idea that like everything is not necessarily just black and white, like George had kind of put forth years ago. I really,
Don't say
really
gray.
don't say gray, yeah. So after watching Tales of the Jedi recently with Austin,
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of like resparked this just curiosity as to like Dooku. So I actually ended up picking up one of the I think it's now considered a Legends book. I don't think it's considered mainline canon any longer. But I actually picked up the Dooku book, which of course was what heavily inspired the Tales of the Jedi scenes with him. I just see a man that's like kind of pushed to doing what he did. I mean, he, especially what they show in Tales of the Jedi, is just somebody who feels like the system that he was meant to uphold was kind of betraying its own people. And then, of course, in Mando season 3 and the episode that everyone gives crap for, obviously that was something that was heavily, heavily pushed by that older gentleman that was controlling the robots. Just that he was truly the one that was fighting for democracy instead of
Mm-hmm.
the clones. So I don't know. Yeah, I kind of moved him up on my list just because I felt like he is somebody who I feel like that's a very relatable thing right now. Somebody who's fighting for all the right reasons, but then becomes radicalized for all of the wrong reasons, and then their fight kind of goes straight out the window. I feel like that's pretty relevant for a lot of people right now in the country. I feel like there's a lot of people who are very passionate about stuff for the right reason, who then get turned into radicalization, which then ends up harming more people than they thought that they were going to save. So I moved him up on my list. Number 4, I can't remember where BD1 was on my other list, but even though he's a droid, I think he has a ton of character, especially Survivor made me fall in love with him even more. I feel like they really, really pushed him in Survivor as more of like a character instead of just a sidekick.
Yeah, he went through it in Survivor, that's for sure.
And especially like when they get reunited, his original owner and him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I
Mm-hmm.
literally started crying. But anyways, yep, obviously BD1 had to be up there on my list. Um, I still like. I genuinely have to say that like he is probably he, hands down is obviously my favorite droid, but especially even after reading the book, he just it's. I like that they're doing that. I like that they're showing that like droids are not just slaves, droids are not just servants, but droids are actually like full characters, full people in a sense. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that. Cassian Andor was my number 3 for obvious reasons. Obviously, Andor is my all-time favorite show. Uh, but especially after reading the Rogue One novelization, that was another area where they really expanded on his character. And I actually feel like they did. I don't. It was not intentional, and I'm assuming that Tony probably took inspiration from the novelization of his script to be able to make Andor the show as great as it was. But especially with the show, the Rogue One novelization is just like stellar. So I'm really excited. The biggest reason why I read it was just because I wanted to be able to like kind of prepare myself for season 2. And I genuinely think that season 2 is going to be fucking amazing because if they kind of go into some of the stuff that they talk about in the book, some of his backstory, which I won't spoil, it's just going to be fucking awesome. Some of the battles that he was in and some of the things that he did. Number 2 on my list is Ahsoka Tano, not necessarily just because of the Ahsoka show, but mainly just because, especially after rewatching Clone Wars season 7 and sobbing endlessly into a fucking pillow. I just like she is just when you say that like Obi-Wan is the quintessential Jedi, I feel like Ahsoka Tano is in my mind she's kind of like Nim. Like I always say that Nim is the best of us whenever I kind of talking about Nim's character from Andor. I think that Ahsoka represents that as well. Like she was somebody who was scorned by the people that she loved and scorned by the people that she fought for, and especially watching this TV series and the that whole episode that takes place in the world between worlds, like it puts it
Mm.
so much better into perspective that she was a fucking child and like a child soldier for almost all of her like
Mm-hmm.
growing up. It's just like especially after watching season 7, like I had to move her up on my list just because I fucking love her. I bought the book. I bought her book, but it's no longer technically considered canon. It's what obviously inspired a lot of the Tales of the Jedi episodes that came from her or came about of her. But I'm excited to read that. I need to probably dive into that pretty soon. And then, of course, top on my list. I don't think this has changed. Maybe it did, but Cal Kestis. I mean, especially between those two games and the book, like he's such a fucking good character, and I love that they didn't just make him outright perfect. I love that he had those dark side tendencies. I love that he had that kind of slip even in the first game. He kind of slipped into the dark side tendencies, and I just love that he's just a survivor, and I cannot wait to see more of his stuff. I don't know if they actually ever officially did confirm if they were going to put him in a movie or put him in live action in any form, but maybe after this
I
most
haven't heard
next game that
anything.
comes out. I mean, because Cameron Monaghan will be at the age that if I think they progressed. I can't remember how many years they progressed between the first one and the second one, but the third one obviously will be
5.
a 5 years. So the third one will
Mm-hmm.
obviously be a number of years as well, especially with how the ending happens with the child. Um, so I'm just excited for it, and I hope that whatever game comes out next actually is playable on PC because I have switched to PC and I want to be able to play the games. But yeah,
I wouldn't bet on it.
I wouldn't bet on it as well. I mean, it's what happens whenever they get their grubby little paws on there. Which next week will be a good discussion about publishers. We're going to kind of talk about some Baldur's Gate 3 stuff and how it plays into a lot of stuff that's happening with publishers around. And yeah, I feel like Jedi Survivor is a good example of that, where it just feels like the game should have been so much better than it was, like performance wise. And I just hate that like only console players were able to enjoy it consistently, I should say.
Oh, um, I don't.
Yeah, it sucks to suck. So actually, the thing that I forgot to make a list of is just what I'll let you think about it. I'll go with mine first because we already know what my answer is. But
Mm.
favorite all-time favorite Star Wars movie. For me, it's hands down Rogue One. I'm very, very partial to Gareth Edwards. I think he's an amazing sci-fi director. I know that people have their issues with some of the content that he's had, but I fucking love Rogue One. I think that it was an amazing story. It was amazing visuals. I mean, some of the shots that they did in that, like the eclipse shot with the Death Star, just all of it is just
Yep.
chef's kiss.
Yep.
Especially reading the book, the novelization of it, like it just makes me love it all
Mm.
the fucking more. So I think that's probably mine. What would you say yours is?
Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star
Ooh,
Wars movie.
okay. I think that's switched. I think last year it was it episode 3?
Nope.
Always Empire Strikes Back. It's a good one. I mean,
Always
it
Empire
doesn't
Strikes
end
Back.
on a positive note, and that's awesome. I
No.
love whenever it's a tragedy. That's kind of what I like about Rogue One. Like everyone's gonna die, so you kind of get to the point
Well,
where
it's
you're discovering how.
yeah. What's funny is my top 3: Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith, and Rogue One.
There you go. Yeah,
So
they're all
they're
movies that
all
end
bad
bad.
endings.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, like I would say, even from like a visual standpoint, from like a cinematic standpoint, Empire Strikes Back was it's so good. It's so good. They did such a good job. I think that they really, obviously, with the funding that they had after the success of the original movie, they just did a much better job with the script. So the lines were a little bit more real instead of being,
Mm.
kind of wacky like the first one was. And then, of course, too, them just
Yeah.
exploring the characters' issues with each other was really, really cool.
The only thing that like bothers me about it, like to this day, is just that weird forest scene where like
Mm,
he's fighting Vader and then cuts its head
yeah.
off and it's him and the helmet explodes. It's like there's no explanation. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. And like I watched it this morning again and I was like, this is. so awkward. It makes no sense, but
Well, I mean, so from like a
it is what
lore
it is.
standpoint, it's supposed to be like I think it's supposed to be that all Jedi are supposed to face like make that choice, face their dark side self to choose a side because Cal did it, Ray
Mm,
did it. I again, I think that it's just one of those things where like it's a subtlety thing that I wish that maybe they would put a little bit more out in the open,
right.
because obviously like it takes places around or all of these things take place around like dark force nexuses or whatever they ended up calling it out of the fucking sequels.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a really good choice. I think that's a. I would say of the original trilogy, that's probably my favorite. And I would actually
Hmm.
argue. I would actually agree with you. I think out of all the mainline movies, like out of the Skywalker saga, I think that probably is also my favorite. I mean, but also Episode One's really good. I don't know. Kind of stuck between
Mm, it's not bad.
that. Well, let's see what else we got on our list. Oh, our favorite Star Wars moments. So these are either scenes or episodes from some of our favorite Star Wars content. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can go, but
Okay.
like if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen it. I'm not gonna go too much into it because we're kind of on a constraint. But yeah, five. I've got Vader in the hangar in Rogue One.
Yep. That's a
Like,
really good
because
one.
like for me, um, Rogue One, like I hyped it up so much in my head.
Yeah.
Just like at this point, Vader's at the height of his power. That is all I wanted to see, and that ended up in the movie was perfect,
Did you know that Gareth
absolutely
Edwards actually had to
perfect.
fight for that scene to be in the movie? They
That
wanted to
doesn't
cut
surprise
that
me.
scene entirely out. And it's like it's what bridges the two movies. Like
Yeah.
I honestly I remember sitting in theaters. So I was lucky enough that I actually got to see it on the premiere date. I remember sitting in
Yep.
theaters. I think I was in Springfield, Missouri. I think it was whenever I was still living there, and everybody in the theater started like cheering, gasping. I mean, it was
Yep.
that was fucking cool. That was cool being able to be a part of that, and everyone was like, "What?" Like it was so fucking cool. I remember
Yep.
like that whole time my heart is beating so fucking fast just trying to see them to escape. And I think that that was like what Gareth did amazing in that scene was just create that tension and then
Mm-hmm.
that be what we get. It was just so
Well,
fucking
yeah, you
cool.
just have that. You have that slight, alarm going off in the back, and
Yeah.
then just the saber ignites, and everyone's like, "Oh, fuck!"
Yeah. That was so
Yeah, it
so so
was.
so cool.
Oh, so good.
What
In four, I have the like just Obi-Wan and like Anakin slash Vader and Kenobi, where they're just kind of, I guess, talking to each other, but like
yeah.
where the sabers are going back and forth, and Anakin switches between the voices of Vader and
Yeah.
himself, and yeah,
The
um,
lightsaber color
it,
changes too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just perfect, like another perfect scene. The end kind of is weird because
Yeah.
like he just kind of leaves him there when he could have killed him, but yeah. Um, and
That was
then
another one
three,
that
I
was
had
actually a scene by accident, by the way. I don't know if did you ever know that whole color that happened between the two lightsabers, that wasn't intentional. That was 100%
I had
just
no idea.
yeah, it was
I thought they were just
100%
like,
just the way that he held the lightsaber and it brought the color closer.
wow,
It was actually an accident because he wasn't supposed to put the lightsaber that close to his head because it was going to potentially ruin the shot. It's just one of those moments that just like
wow,
it's just fucking perfect, perfect. Even if they copied it from Ahsoka and
and they didn't
in
even mean
Rebels.
to do it. Well, they did.
Yeah.
They did
Yeah.
kind of copy it. Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
besides the
they
point.
did.
Number three. What do you got for
Um,
number three?
I have the final scene in Clone Wars.
Makes me bawl like a little bitch
Um,
every time.
yeah, every time. Um, Even like I think you could probably watch that whole episode with no context and still understand what the
Yeah.
heck is going on. But just for me, it's not even necessarily what's going on, which is insane too. Like it's super emotional, but like the music
Oh God.
that's going
Yeah.
on
Kevin Kiner, is that what his name is,
is,
right? I think that was the
yeah, I think
composer
so.
from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just there's like I think there's a comment on the video where it's like uh Darth Vader didn't need to go to a planet and find this random lightsaber, but Anakin did.
Yeah.
And like I know there's another thing where it's like that's the first time for me where I was like, that's definitely Anakin in that suit,
Yeah.
1000%.
I that's one of the things that I ended up showing Austin last week, and I like tried
Mm-hmm.
putting it. I was trying to like break it all up so that way we could like watch stuff kind of in succession. So I had him watch that, and then
Mm-hmm.
we watched the scene from Rebels wherever they like interact again. It's
Mm-hmm.
just God, and the music,
Yeah,
like
that
you said, the
that one
music
in
is just
Rebels
fucking
is
amazing.
ugh. But I still like anytime it comes up on
Yeah,
Reels or whatever or TikTok or whatever, I
yeah,
have to watch it.
yeah,
Like, ugh. And two is actually a more recent one, but just Anakin and Ahsoka in the world between worlds.
mm,
Just, I mean, it's a whole bunch of scenes, but just
yeah,
seeing stuff from the cartoons in live action, and then seeing Anakin, like that's the most powerful version of Anakin was right
yeah.
there. Um,
And
and
that was
he
like the most
balanced
Anakin
it.
version of Anakin as well.
Hmm. And like he was able to balance it
Yeah,
in death, I guess, apparently, and just insane, insane.
absolutely.
Everything that they did with that. And then one, it might be basic, but without it, you don't have anything else. And that is Luke, I am your father.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, that is like the most quintessential, like that is the most probably
Hmm.
memorized of all of the Star Wars things. For most generations. I think maybe for our generation, it's like, I have the high ground.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, without that, it's like
Yeah,
what all ties it together? Without that,
yeah. I really wish, I mean, I wish I could have just been there in 1980. What was that? Was that 1980? 1980. I wish I could have been there in
that was
1980
1980.
to be in the theaters and experience that like one specific scene.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like
um
like when I see videos of like parents showing their kids that for the first
yeah.
time, like, and they're just like, I
Wait till you
love
find out
that.
he's Vader, kid.
Hmm.
um so for me, I think it's been mostly Disney stuff. Again, I think just mainly, I don't know, maybe it was just because of like the resurgence that I had with like Star Wars fandom over the past like,
Hmm.
3 to 4 years. Number five for me was actually the past present scene for Andor. That's the scene where it's juxtaposing between them escaping with Luthen, and then of course Marva and I forget his name saving him.
Mm.
I just thought that was amazing, and it's another one of those things that's like, it's just only Tony Gilroy can create this up to where it's just so perfect. And then especially in combination with Nicholas Bertel's composition that he does there, it's just so fucking beautiful. I think also too maybe that was like such a big scene for me just because it was one of those things again where like I watched that show right around the time that my father had passed away, so it was like this weird like, I don't know, sentimental thing for me. But just
Hmm.
the way that they like switch between past Andor and current Andor and how his life is about to completely change again, it's fucking beautiful. Number four for me was the final scene from Clone Wars, just like you. It's probably more fair for me to say the final two episodes. I feel like that's probably
Yeah.
a little bit more
Well,
fair because
yeah.
that's the end of that arc. Um, God, I could even start crying about it right now. But it's every single time that I see that scene where Rex's helmet starts shaking. Oh my God, it just makes me
Hmm.
fucking lose it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Especially like if you did watch all of Clone Wars like Kyle and I did, like this was pretty much her big brother. Like imagine
Yeah.
like your closest friend, because that was her best friend, and the person that's literally been there with her since she started this whole mess, and then he turned on her. It gets me every fucking time.
Hmm.
And then especially watching Tales of the Jedi, that like training scene, and then watching that, oh my God. Uh,
Yeah.
Number three for me is Kanan's death from Rebels. Uh,
Oh yeah,
That
that's my that would probably be my number six.
Your number six. Yeah. This one was
Mm-hmm.
hard for me. I really was struggling between which one to put for number three and number four. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
I think the only reason why this scene steals it for number three was just because of the sheer power of what happened. I think, I was talking to one of my friends, Bailey, about this. I think a lot of people give Rebels a really bad rap because of the art style that they had to take. But I think his budget was made like half of what he had for the Clone Wars whenever it got switched over to Disney. So they cut his budget by a shit ton. And then I think they also were a lot more strict with what they were wanting him to do. And so, I feel like that moment, that specific little arc that they did, especially after that, following that with like the Loth Wolves and everything, that was
Mm-hmm.
like when I really feel like you got to see Dave Filoni really shine. That was when you really got to see how great of a director he was and how great of a writer he can be. And I mean, especially with just everything about that scene, how they create the tension, how it's right after they finally confess their love for each other, and then the force that's flowing through him is so powerful that it restores his eyesight. It allows, oh god,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna make me cry. It allows him to see like the woman he loves like one last time, and for her to see that, it's so fucking good. It's so fucking
Mm-hmm.
good. Like if I ever like seriously just want to cry about something, I watch that, and then I also watch the final episode of Clone Wars.
Well, Clone Wars, yeah.
Number two for me was the Fondor scene, the Arrestor Cruiser Fondor scene from Andor. Um, it was one of
Mm-hmm.
like it's another one that's such a simple moment, such a simple thing that creates so much tension between the music and between just knowing that this could be like the end of Luthen. And then also too, like I feel like the Fondor itself was such a great character in the movie or in the show. I mean, in a way that like a lot of ships are not necessarily characters, but I feel like the Fondor represents who Luthien is. How on the outside he's just a normal guy, an eccentric
Mm.
guy maybe, and hidden behind it is actually something that's far more powerful and far more dangerous to the Empire.
It's a good parallel, yeah.
It's such a good scene. And again, it's one of those things that just I think when we talked about it when we did our Andor breakdown, I think I timed it and it's literally 38 seconds from start to finish, that whole like scene. And just
Mm-hmm.
somehow that 38 seconds still like contains so much power behind showing who he is and then also showing the very real threat that the rebellion exist towards the Empire. Um just so fucking good. I literally I told my friend Austin this the other day, that is my Roman Empire. I literally think about that scene at least once a week. Like not even joking. I think about the Fondor scene. like uh for me, number one was Ahsoka's final training. That's what I kind of called it in the World Between Worlds, just
I
between
mean,
all three
that's
of
what it
that.
is, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That whole episode, I remember. I don't think you were able to watch it with us live whenever we were doing the live streaming.
I don't think I was either,
I think
no.
you were out of. I think you were in Wyoming. But I
Sounds
remember
about that
like
sounds about right, yeah.
yeah, I had to mute myself the whole time. I like literally was crying so much that like my like sleeve was like soaked from just like constantly wiping tears. It was so beautifully done. I think out of the entire series, that was obviously the best episode. Um,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh
it
yeah.
just it did such a good fucking job showing that she was literally a child when all of this was happening, and she was somehow
Mhm.
able to like maintain it. I also like complete hat off to Hayden Christensen. Not only did he give us like the most quintessential like Anakin that we've ever had, but he also was able to embody the Anakin that we fell in love with Clone Wars. It was just so fucking good.
Mhm.
Like if anybody wants to question me on whether or not he's a good actor, I will point them in that direction. And people can say what they want to about him being 18 years old and trying to do number two, and then whatever 25 years old whenever he was doing number three. But
Mhm.
like that right there showed his acting prowess in ways that I don't think any of the other content that he's done
When
does.
he's essentially playing like three to four different characters in that
Literally,
span too, because he's Vader as well.
absolutely. I think, and especially watching the making of the show, like the behind the scenes stuff of the show. I think that it was intentional that they didn't really show each other. Like they didn't get to hang out until that specific scene. But Rosario and
Hmm.
him have like years of history. I think they both went to the same acting school when they were like 14 or 15.
Oh, okay.
So they have a very serious and deep friendship. And I think that like Dave was intentional of not showing them to each other until that scene. So being able to see them, practice, whatever else, and then have that was just so fucking cool. But especially whenever she turns around and says Anakin and seeing him smile that way, gets my heart every time. And I know I
I
jokingly told
thought
you this
like one of
earlier, but
the
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
just one of the cooler moments was like her Sith eyes for a second. I
Yeah.
was like, wait. I was like, did I really just see that? Like,
Yeah. It's
like
just,
just little, and obviously you had the clicking back and forth
yeah.
between Anakin and Vader and the lightning and thunder, and I was like, oh,
It
it's
makes me
so
so
so good.
excited. It makes me really excited for all the future Star Wars content that we're getting. I mean, I feel like I know that a lot of people have a lot of criticisms about Disney and Star Wars, but I feel like we are finally getting the content that Dave Filoni really wants to put out
Hmm.
there. And I feel like, especially with Ahsoka, they kind of gave him, for the most part, a blank check and just kind of told him, do what you want. But I feel like, we've talked about it plenty of times. The show was definitely rushed. It felt like at the very end, everything was uh, very heavily rushed to where it kind of destroyed the story for both of us. But I think even if you were to take everything else out, I think that those 2 episodes, that 2 episode arc where they did that, in and of itself would make the entire show worth it. And they could have ended it right there at that 6th episode, and it could have been just an amazing show altogether. But yeah, let's see. Next up is our hidden gems. So I picked 3 episodes of
Sorry.
stuff that's on Disney Plus. All of these are on Disney Plus and able to be watched. It looks like Kyle picked some kind of alternative content, which is perfect. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
start with my list first. So I'll start with number 3. So number 3 is The Sith Lord, which is from the Tales of the Jedi miniseries. Again, it's one of those things that's kind of hidden down in there, and also too because it looks very similar from like the thumbnail standpoint. It looks very similar to Young Jedi. I think a lot of people skip over Tales of the Jedi, thinking that it's just a kid show, like meant for like kids. When I would say it's actually maybe more mature than any of the other animated series that they have.
Mm.
Specifically, the Sith Lord is the 2nd episode in the Dooku storyline. And that's the one where he dukes it out with Yaddle. Again, it's one of those things where there's, you can see the hurt, you can see the tension, you can see the pain that he carries. And fucking Mace Windu. God, that show really made me hate Mace Windu even more. But
A lot of it is
especially
kind of
to,
his fault. I'm
I
just
mean,
throwing that out there.
literally though, like literally though. And specifically like with that episode, it just does a really, really perfect job of, again, showing kind of what we saw with Obi-Wan and Anakin, where you can see that tension between the light side and the dark side kind of going at it with,
Mm.
within somebody. And especially because that show makes you think that all is for naught, and then it's like, hey, just kidding. So I'm not going to dive into it any more than that. You bitches just need to go watch it. Like, seriously, stop what you're
Hmm.
doing. Go watch all of the Tales of the Jedi. It only takes like 40 minutes in total because all the episodes are short. But yeah. My next 2 are both from Vision season 2, and I think that that's because Vision season 1 had a very anime style, which was
Yeah,
awesome.
that's why I haven't bothered watching any of that. Is season two not like that?
Not as much, no. See, so season 1, of course, was directly trying to be anime, like that. We're trying to do
Hmm.
different anime versions of it. It was still done with studios that were not just from Japan. There was also some studios. I think there was a Korean studio. I think there was an English studio. But Star Wars
Hmm.
Vision's season 2 actually switched it up to where they brought people from all over the world and had their specific visual style perpetuated or kind of shown in that. So it starts off with like a Spanish episode, very heavily Spanish artistic style. They have an episode that's kind of like a Bollywood version. It comes from a studio in India, so it has like a kind of Bollywood
Indian.
esque aspect to it. So number 4, or sorry, number 3, or yeah, number 2, number 2 from my list was The Pit. I think The Pit was from the United States, if I'm not mistaken. But it's another one where even though it doesn't have like lightsabers and everything like that, it just shows the evil aspect of the Empire. And it also shows that people themselves were completely blinded to a lot of the Empire's actions. and then it also just shows the resilience of the people versus the Empire. So that's a really good episode. Uh, and then number one for me is Ow's song. Obviously, that one's pretty high on my list. We've got a guest here in 2 weeks for specifically that episode. Um,
Mhm.
Not only is the music really fucking incredible out of that, but also just the subtleties behind the story that they have with that, which I'm not going to dive too much into it because we're going to dive all into it here in a few weeks. Um, that's another one that just everyone needs to go watch. It's like a mixture. So obviously everything's, I think it's all felt mation, if that is a thing. You know how there's like claymation, it's all like felt
Mm,
characters and stuff. But the aesthetic that they have behind it is very heavily like Studio Ghibli kind of. Uh,
okay.
so it's just very beautiful. And then, of course, also it's really cool just seeing some of the South African kind of inclusion that they have in there and some of the vibes that they have in there. And it's one of those things that a lot of people will skip over, but it's actually a very, very beautiful story. And it actually is pretty fucking cool from a lore standpoint. So that's another one you guys should go watch. You guys should absolutely go watch it before we talk about it in 2 weeks. So that's your homework for the week. Kyle, what about you? What are your three hidden gems?
I mean, they're not episodes or anything like you were
Yeah,
saying, but from just another music thing, there's this band, like this metal band that dresses up kind of as the characters, and they play all the songs from the movie in
that's cool.
like a metal style. They're called
That's kind of
Galactic
cool.
Empire.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I mean, it's more of just like a fun little thing. Like I just like it.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess two, when I was a kid, when Phantom Menace was coming out, they had these little um toys from the characters in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of put this little like microchip in their foot and put them on this other device, and like they said just lines from the movie.
Yeah.
It was like one or two things. It was just I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. They're probably worth a lot of money now.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Um, but just it's another little thing that I was just like, that is super cool. And then the last one for me would just I don't know how many people played it. I don't know how many people talk about it, but the Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith video game for PlayStation
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
I played that game so much that it no longer works. It's just stuck in the temple. I can't play it
Yeah.
anymore. But it also had an alternate ending
Ooh.
where Anakin defeats Obi-Wan. Receives his red lightsaber from Palpatine, throws it up in the air, stabs him right in the back with it, and he says, "This is my new empire." And that's how the game ends.
I never actually got to play the alternate ending, but I remember there was that
It
scene
was
with
so
uh,
good.
Franz Fitzgerald, right? There was like that rock band scene that you could do. Are you not
That
aware
does
of
not
that?
sound familiar to me.
Yeah,
That does not sound familiar to me at all.
there's a hidden gem in that game where you can actually it does like this whole like cutscene kind of animation, and it's like I think it's literally Obi-Wan, Anakin is the lead singer. I think Yoda's on the drums, and then there's somebody else. I can't remember who else is in there, but there's somebody else, and it's like a whole
Well,
thing. You need to look it up on YouTube. It's a
I
real
haven't
thing.
seen that.
It's a real
That's
thing. It's
funny.
so
And then
fucking
yeah,
cool.
just the menu music for that game too was
Mm-hmm.
really good.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know how hidden they really are, but that's what I got.
I feel like it's pretty hidden. I don't feel like a lot of people, especially played that number three, just because Battlefront 2 came out like I think just
Kind of
months, like six
around,
six-ish months
yeah.
or something beforehand. Because
Mm-hmm.
the Battlefront 2 came out just before the movie as a means to like kind of give the movie some nods and everything. So, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that number three is a very very good game. I remember playing it on my friend's
Super good.
Xbox because I didn't have it for my PlayStation 2.
And then I mean, they changed some stuff around. Like
Yeah,
you actually get to fight Mace Windu instead of just throwing him out a window. But I thought it was cool.
I wish we could have fought fucking Mace Windu. Especially like
I mean, you
after
get
watching
to.
Tales of the Jedi, man. I mean, it's just like he's such a scumbag. Like he's just such a fucking scumbag. It's like him and Kiadi Like Kiadi is forever ruined for me because of the Clone Wars series because he just shows how shitty of a person he is.
But what about the Wookiees?
Fuck the Wookiees, man. Nobody cares about the Wookiees. Completely kidding. So I think we're gonna. Oh, I just messed up the screen there. I think we're gonna try to wrap up here pretty soon. Obviously,
Mm.
with Kyle having a very long week, I want to be able to make sure he can go spend some time with the family. And like I said, I would like to go watch the movies. So I want to end off just by some of the stuff that Kyle and I obviously are pretty excited for when it comes to upcoming Star Wars content. I know that a lot of people kind of skipped over our first episode just because we went over a lot of stuff about what was going to be changing with the podcast, but something we talked about in the first episode was just some of the stuff that's coming out soon. So Tales of the Empire is now out, right? Meow.
Yep.
So you can go watch that in all of your heart's content. I think it's going to be fucking amazing because if anything has been shown by Dave Filoni is that he does a really good job of making us actually love the villains. So that one follows three different characters, I think this time, or maybe I think it's three. It's Morgan Elsbeth, Barry Office, and
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like somebody else. And I feel like I'm going to be an idiot and be like, oh yeah, this is who it was. Number 2 is the Acolyte. That's coming out pretty soon
Mm-hmm.
as well. I think what
June
June
4th.
June 4th. So we got a
June
month
4th.
away. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that one I people have been very contentious about that one, but I'm pretty fucking excited for it. I'm very excited to see.
It looks great to me. I like
Yeah,
the setting where they're at and the story they're setting out to tell. So I'll watch it.
especially since I have read some of the books recently as well for that era. I'm very, very, very excited for it. I'm just excited to see them.
That's High Republic, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay, then
I'm
yeah.
excited to see them just dive into that whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, I think in that first episode of this season, they've actually literally been working on this since they came out with The Force Awakens. While The Force Awakens
Mm-hmm.
was being written at Lucasfilm, they had a whole ass team created just for the High Republic era. So that way there's a base for all of the stories when it comes to books, potential games, everything. Um, I'm excited for it, especially after what we saw in Jedi Survivor. It's just gonna be so
Survivor,
fucking
yeah.
cool. Number
Tune up.
3. Do you want to read off number 3, Kyle?
Yeah, we've got well, I don't know how excited I am for it anymore, but
Yeah,
Star Wars Outlaw is coming out in like mid-November. I think that's what it is.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It's the first open world Star Wars game.
We'll see how open world it is.
We'll see how that goes. But that is a thing that is coming out.
I don't know how excited either of us are on it, just because Ubisoft has really been Ubisofting lately,
Yeah,
and it just makes me nervous that
yeah.
this is going to be another game filled with microtransactions and
Mm-hmm.
empty content.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
Number 4. Are you too familiar with number 4? I don't. There's not been a lot of
I
chatter
still
about
don't
it.
even really know a whole lot about it. Like, I know it's a show but like,
Yeah. So the Skeleton Crew
there really
is
hasn't been a whole lot about it, is there?
not really. No, I mean, obviously they showed it at Star Wars Celebration, and everyone that got to see the teaser trailer or like the preview of it, obviously that was all NDA'd, so they can't talk about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw some of the murmurings on Twitter of some of the people because Star Wars Celebration tickets just went on sale, so everyone's talking about it again, and makes me feel
Mm-hmm.
poor because I can't afford to go to Japan. But the I think a lot of people have started talking about it a little bit more, just saying how excited they are for it because of how amazing it was, but they don't go beyond that. Um, to the best of my knowledge, it's going to be kind of like it's going to be entirely based around like a special forces wing of the rebellion. It's going to be kind of like a ragtag crew. I'm assuming it's going to give a lot of similar vibes to the League of
Kind of like
Ungentlemanly
Rebels or
Warfare,
something, right?
kind of like Rebels, but I think they're going a lot more with like a group of like criminals. So I think it's going to be a lot
Oh,
like
okay.
that show that or that movie that just came out that you probably haven't seen yet. I think it's called the League of Ungentlemanly Warfare, or maybe it's just something like that. Um,
I don't know.
but it's a movie that's based on like World War II, and it's like same thing. It's like criminals and ragtag guys that everyone else would be like, oh, these guys are weird. Um, outside of that, they haven't really talked anything about it. Like I don't even think they've put anything out really. I saw on Twitter that there's unconfirmed dates that it's coming out in December, but I don't really believe that until it actually comes from an official source.
Right,
Um,
right. Well, it's like that we know so little about it is like
yeah,
a little concerning because if a
yeah,
trailer's already been released at some point,
yeah. Well, and
what's going on?
I mean, like it's been delayed. I think it was supposed to come out last year technically, but they delayed it because of the writer strikes, rightfully so.
Hmm.
And it's just it feels like it's been stuck in post production for a very long time, which is never a good sign. Like Solo was kind of stuck in post production for way too long, and I feel like that's kind of why it feels really discombobulated, just because the movie kind of is all over the place. But I mean, Rogue One was also stuck in post production hell for quite a while. I think it was actually almost on the cutting board to not even come out at all. And I feel like with the reshoots and kind of what Tony Gilroy did with fixing what the original script was, I feel like it ended up being a pretty damn good movie. So I have some high hopes, but I'm also just kind of, I don't really know much about it, so I can't really speak much about it.
Hmm.
Andor season 2, we already know that that's going to be fucking amazing. That's coming out, I think,
Yeah, I
projected for
saw some
October.
sort of snippet from an interview, and Tony Gilroy was like, "This is the like best thing I've ever
Yeah.
done, pretty much." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, season one was amazing, so
I mean, and
okay."
a lot of people do give like the Bourne movies kind of a bad rap, just because they kind of became a little bit conflated. But I mean, he was the one who wrote for almost all of the Bourne movies, and I feel like
Mm.
I personally really liked what they did with the story, and I really liked everything that they did there. So I mean, he's an amazing fucking writer, and those were very successful movies. So if he says that this is the best work he's ever done, then like, hold your pants, boys.
Yeah, yeah. And Jesus Christ, it's Cassian
Um,
Andor.
oh, and so I think that obviously we talked about the Acolyte earlier, but the final trailer is actually playing in the movies.
It, it came out online today as
Oh,
well.
they're okay. So I didn't know if they were going to show
That's
that
how I
only in
knew
the
about it.
movies. Maybe the movie one is different then, because I know that they're doing a special preview
Maybe.
only seen in the movies. If you go to the May
Hmm.
4th movies,
Okay. Well, if I'm gonna watch the one that comes out later,
yeah,
and I'll send it to you. So if it's any different, just let me know, but don't tell me how it's different.
okay, yeah. The poster came out. I did see that the poster finally came out, and there is some twins I saw on there. Um,
Okay. I didn't see that.
Definitely look at the poster. Kind of do a little bit like
Okay.
a zoom in. There's twins on there, so I don't know how that's going to play into everything. They also have some really mysterious dark character that kind of looks. You would have no frame of reference because you didn't play it, but the character looks a lot like the Hunter from Starfield, which was kind of cool. Um, I'm excited for the show, but again, especially after kind of how disappointed we were with Andor, not Andor,
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. I'm not really hyping myself up too much about it. I'm just gonna kind of enjoy it when it comes out.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of these shows now. It's like
Yeah,
I kind of want to go into it with like very few expectations.
yeah. Especially because I mean, like what we're seeing with publishers and games right now. I feel like it would be ignorant for us not to acknowledge that there is probably a lot of content. There's a lot of stuff that's come out recently where some of the gripes are probably mostly because somebody made a decision from a desk concerning only money, and that made the content kind of suffer for to a point.
Hmm.
I don't know. I especially with Ahsoka, I just feel like there's just no reason why the show ended up the way it did at the very last 3 episodes, other than somebody from the top made a decision that kind of made it turn out the way it was. Like it's just weird. And then it looks like number 7 that you put on the list is the discounted Star Wars games this weekend on Steam. Is it on? I think it's also on Xbox and PlayStation as well, right?
Um. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind
Um.
of across the
I
board.
mean, I haven't really looked because
Already
I
own all of
have a
them.
lot of them, but
Yeah, yeah,
if you don't, I think I don't know how the port for Survivor works yet. I'm pretty sure it still doesn't, but I know it's discounted on Steam
yeah.
again. So,
The only way that you should purchase it
man,
is on discount.
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially if it's you're gonna get like 75% through the game and it might not even work anymore. But
Exactly.
hopefully it does work. I doubt they fixed the port, but who knows?
Yeah. it's it's honestly, I mean, like I know you said this earlier, but I think it is probably my favorite. I shouldn't say that. Baldur's Gate 3 is really up there for me right now. I would agree with you that it's probably one of my favorite video games of all time. And just the story, everything.
Yeah, yeah.
When it did work, it was really great. but then I switched to PC and I can't play it. But yeah, the
Mhm.
massive, massive discounts across all of the Star Wars titles. You
Oh,
can pick it up from anywhere. Like even Asper is doing like their direct sale for Coder, a lot of their other games. Uh, Definitely go pick it up. Like if you can afford it right now, this is like the cheapest that any of these games have ever been. I think freaking Fallen Order on Steam is only $3.49. Fallen Order is,
insane.
it's a different game. I think that's what, I wasn't, it took me a little bit to get into the game because I'm not used to that Souls style, I think is what that's called, right? Soul style
Yeah,
game or whatever.
Souls-like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that,
Souls-like game.
it is truly one of the most beautiful games. It is truly one of the most beautiful world buildings. And it just does an amazing job showing off the character. Um, Also, too, this is probably the only time when I could recommend purchasing the classic editions of the original Battlefront games. I
Mhm.
think that they've fixed most of their issues. I think they've kind of
I
made it
think I've heard that they
stable.
did, yeah.
I can't justify spending that money when it's full price. Let
Mhm.
me see another one that I'm seeing. I don't check and see if they did a PlayStation port. I don't know if they did do a PlayStation port, but some of the original games like the Kyle Katarn, so Tales of the Empire, or not Tales of the Empire.
Mm, I think they only did the port for Switch.
Okay, so if it is on Switch, maybe try to pick that up because I've been playing the PC version on my Steam Deck and it's pretty fun.
Mm,
Um, it's obviously a very classic game. It's not like our modern expectations, but it was very
yeah,
cool, kind of going
yeah.
through that story, and then of course too with the updated graphics that they did, just made it really really cool. And then of course too,
They have,
I
yeah.
what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
They have, the both of the Force Unleashed games are also ported over to Switch as well.
Yeah,
And
and those are
they're
fun. I played the first one.
very hard to find anywhere else. So
Yeah, the
if you have a Switch, go for it.
The Steam version is pretty stable. It's got a pretty good port. I've been playing it, even though it says it's not supported on my Steam Deck. I've been playing it on my Steam Deck and not had any issues. Um,
Hmm.
it's been a very, 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 very fun game. I think it's a little bit more of a nostalgia trip for many. I don't think it holds up to a lot of like modern game standards, but it's just fun. It's just super fun. It's fun being overpowered and all that. Um, Another one that I'm seeing is actually Star Wars Squadrons. I know that that didn't have the best release, and I know it's maybe considered
Hmm.
somewhat of a boring game. And I would only argue that it's considered boring compared to like Battlefront 2, that came out like I think just a few months beforehand. But I think it's a really fun thing. I think it's really fun being able to kind of play around in the all of the original kind of starships. I really wish I had a VR headset because that's where I'm told that that game is like that's where it really shines is being VR. Which how cool would that be being able to sit in the cockpit of an X-wing. But yeah, those are some really awesome games that are on mega discount. In the video that we put out on YouTube, I'll actually show all of the discounts that I currently see. Hopefully, they're still out on Monday. I can't remember. Let me look at Steam really quick. What does it say? I don't know if they had an end date. Did they? Oh no, they. Oh wow. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is going to be half off at least on Steam until January 4th. So that's
Oh wow.
is this right? No, they still have. That's weird. Okay, they have like promotion details up. Okay, so EA, you guys need to fix that. That's really unprofessional. They have details about like the winter sale still on there. Let me see if they have it anywhere else. I can't really see. And then, of course, if you guys don't necessarily want to purchase it through Steam or one of the other ones, you guys can always purchase it directly from EA, but you should not do that because Steam has better business practices than EA does if you're going to be playing on PC. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's kind of almost it.
Yep.
Oh, our
Yep.
our Patreon's out.
Is
The
it?
first video that we did, so the last week's gaming stream was really fun, but we had some major issues kind of towards the end. Um, Jazz's internet started to shit on itself, and she was the one who was like the multiplayer host, so we kept crashing out. So I'll be honest, I don't really know if I want to put that up on the Patreon just because it was like maybe 45 minutes of gameplay that was very spotty and it kept crashing. So we will put more content out. Right now, we've got the scripts, and then I'm going to do a behind the scenes version of the editing that I'm going to be doing probably tomorrow. I'm not going to do any of it tonight. So you guys will be able to see some of that shit. But yeah, again, if you guys do choose to support us on Patreon, we obviously very much appreciate it. All of the funds that we create for that go straight back into the podcast. I think what Kyle and I kind of decided on for our first bit, if we make any money off of it, is to try and create some merch, to put out some merch. But yeah, again, no obligation, no requirement or anything like that. But if you guys do choose to support us, that would definitely help us make the podcast be great and not look like garbage. Also, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, right, meow, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video. And if you would, please leave a comment, even if it's just saying nothing other than poop. It just helps the algorithm feel like people are actually paying attention to the content. I saw a pretty big spike in the viewership this past week. So if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. And if you guys are watching us on Twitch, obviously don't forget to like the stream or whatever it's considered, subscribe, heart it, whatever it's called. I don't fucking know. Anything else? I feel like I'm missing stuff. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. Am I missing anything? Patreon,
I don't know. I
Twitch,
gotta go.
YouTube. Yeah. So as always, guys, if nobody else tells you this week, you are important, you matter, and we love the shit out of you. And Kyle, do you wanna say your last little line there for the evening?
Our allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. And that's it. I go. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Happy May the 4th for everybody who is here still. Happy May the 4th. And thank you guys so much for joining us for the Twitch live stream. Bye.